I'm going to find you this many people. That's going to be gone. In-house teams with AI will nail that.
Yes.
You sitting here and fearing it ain't changing it.
The last 3 months I've been spending my time actually stripping AI out of my business.
How do we teach our leaders how to use AI more effectively? I've got some ideas now on that, so thanks guys.
So this is Sean Anderson, Hung Lee and Ben Stocken. They live and breathe the world of recruitment. They've got great visibility on exactly what the leadership of businesses are thinking about in AI today.
AI optimizations.
It's making people busier, not streamlining it.
People are seeing it as wisdom rather than just knowledge.
Every act of technology innovation is an act of de-skilling of the individual.
The bit that I'm worried about is another question. Like,
Talk about the decisions that recruitment leaders need to make today in order to get ahead of the talent.
Neophilia totally attracted to the new, but especially the fact that the new is being pumped quite hard.
So I've got the most advanced agent who now knows that your agent isn't a human. And then you've got a point where people are like, well, I don't know who to trust.
blinded by every tool in the market.
If you change everything, you change nothing.
Sean, Ben and Hung all have incredible insight into the recruitment, HR and leadership markets.
There'll still need to be the human element to it because ultimately someone's got to be blamed if it's wrong. I can't blame OpenAI or whatever the LLM. So
You can blame OpenAI.
The thing that we should be doing more of is not.
LinkedIn is actually where you're spending all your time and you're paying all your money for, right? We're looking at all this shite and right in front of us is a goldmine and we're not using it.
What percentage of people do you think are now the tool of AI? Guys, thank you for coming along. Great to see you all. So opportunity for us to get together and to try and find some consensus in the madness and the impact of AI, and in particular AI on recruitment, hence you chaps are here. Looking at it through the lens of the fact that AI is going to have an impact on the world of internal recruitment and that of recruitment agencies as well. And I guess when we look at the landscape, we think about the impact on the agency world, we really need to appreciate the fact that all of these tools, technologies, services, platforms will be available to internal teams. And so the landscape is going to be shifting in its entirety. And so you guys come from a breadth of experiences and a breadth of different dynamics. And I'm hopeful that we can get to some form of consensus this afternoon, or at least try and find some common ground on where that impact might be. But maybe we could start by you guys introducing yourselves, just giving us a little soundbite around who you are and how come you're here. Do you want to kick us off, Hung?
Yeah, no worries. So thanks for inviting me, Ez. So my name's Hung Lee. I still think of myself as a recruiter, even though it's been like 15 years since I sent a CV to anybody. But I started off as agency, 10 years, did about 3-4 years in-house for these like 0 to 50 tech recruitment for recently funded tech companies in London. Launched my own tech product, which is probably when I met Sean. Mm-hmm. It was like a talent matching service. I did a bit of product building and what have you. I screwed that up. So that business went down.
Right.
But my attempt to kind of recover that business ended up doing what I'm doing now. Basically a load of content marketing, a load of conversations. I see myself now really as just supporting the industry ecosystem as best I can by just connecting as many dots as I can. So I write a newsletter, do a podcast, do a bunch of events. I just try and circulate information to the places where it needs to go.
Great. Sure.
Awesome. So I'm Sean Anderson, the founder of Hoxo. I was in recruitment for just over 7 years. I started in Australia, moved to London, and had a great career for 5 years in London. But I'll be really honest with you, I was earning £250,000, but I was burnt out. I was totally. My final year of recruitment, 2016, I was planning to launch Hoxo, a recruitment company, and I was genuinely hiding from the phone. I was pretending to be busy doing things that weren't busy because I was like, I'm just not enjoying it. So I managed to get hold of a guy known as Stephen Bartlett, who had a friend of a friend in 2016. I had a conversation with him, and he was launching Social Chain, and he just inspired me more than anyone I've ever met. And then I ended up consuming content all over the world. What I was trying to work out was, how could I continue recruiting at the level I was? I was just under £1 million biller in London and ran a contract division of over 200 runners. I was like, how can I keep that up, but in a sustainable way? And what I realized was how I was consuming content globally from all these experts was how I was going to become the recruiter that I wanted to, that could perform at the level in a sustainable way, because I wasn't having to do everything manually on the phone. I could bring people to me. So I spent about 6 months in my final 6 months of recruitment for a business in London, where I started to test my theories. And it was incredible. I was getting like 250,000 views on a video walking around London talking about the insurance market. It was dull, but I was doing it. So I then, as I quit my job to launch Hoxo, the recruitment company, in my 4-week garden leave, I decided I wanted to spin a second business out called Hoxo Media, which was going to sell my vision to non-competing recruitment companies. And it just so happened in the 4 weeks I was on garden leave, I signed 4 customers, and I thought I wouldn't have put 4 contractors out in that 4 weeks. So I thought, let's burn my 6-month covenant away, give this a good crack, and if it don't work, I'll go back to what I was doing. And I never went back. So that was 2017. So we're 8.5 years in. I've worked with over 1,000 recruitment companies globally, 800 since the pandemic. I get about 1 million views organically on the platform of LinkedIn every single month. That'll generate 3 million quid this year in fees for my own business. And I've taught recruiters all over the world to make money from LinkedIn, following a very similar method that I do.
Great. Ben.
How do I follow that? Unbelievable. I'm honoured to be in the room with you two guys. Like, Hung followed your newsletter like 10 years ago, probably. And Sean, obviously, like, follow you on LinkedIn. It's inspirational stuff. So, Ben Stocken, founder of Westpeak and now founder of Ethereum as well. So Westpeak is a traditional leadership development management training consultancy. We've got an office in sunny Bournemouth and one in LA. So we only operate on beach locations, apparently.
Is that the deal?
That's the deal. That's the deal. Yeah, and then Ethereum is a new venture that's just kicking off, which is taking traditional leadership development management training, moving it into the AI space, and how do we create a leadership operating system within businesses. So I'm just kind of working on that at the moment. Recruitment. So I started off for England Rugby. I was working for England for 4.5-5 years as a performance coach. And then at 26, made the supernatural transition into the world of recruitment. And then I've spent basically the last 14 years working either as a recruiter, as a billing manager, sales director, and then moved into people and performance roles. Last role as a full-time employee, I was part of Dartmouth Partners. I was head of people and performance. We were on a private equity investment journey, grew and scaled that business, and then realized that off the back of that, the impact that billing managers, team leaders, and leaders have on the development of a business's value, but also on the people. And so, left 4.5 years ago to set Westpeak up. And we work with a bunch of businesses in recruitment and outside of recruitment. So I get the pleasure of spending time with talent attraction internally, as well as seeing how our agency friends work as well.
Amazing. Good. What a platform. So plenty of experience for us to tap into. I guess a natural place for us to start would be just to talk about where we are in the world of AI and how that is being perceived and adopted currently by leaders in businesses generally, and from the different lenses you've got. Maybe, Ben, you kick us off with that.
Yeah, sure. I think, coming from spending loads of time with HR directors and CEOs, talking to them about what their leadership challenges are and succession planning, it's really interesting when you have a conversation about AI and you ask them, like, what's your AI strategy? What's your philosophy? Basically, like, are you doing anything? And I think for me, over the last 6-9 months of those conversations, there's probably 3 different discrete groups. You've got like tinkerers, like tinkerers, integrators, and probably transformers. Right. The tinkerers are probably like 70%-ish of the people I talk to, where we know our people are using ChatGPT. We're kind of okay with that, or we've bought Copilot licenses. The integrators are probably now using AI agents in their sales outreach and some of their workflows in finance. And then that's probably 25%. And then there's 5%, which I would call the transformers, who have kind of taken their businesses and reimagined their business model in the face of AI and the opportunity. So that's probably what I'm seeing at the leadership level. And what one business that kind of rings out is, I was speaking to an HR director at a law firm, and they said to me, in answer to that question, we're probably 18 months away from thinking about how AI plays a role in what we do. And I was just sat there thinking, like, it's a 600-person law firm. I was thinking, wow, I wonder how many people you're going to have left in 18 months if you're not thinking about that already.
The law's got to be one of those sectors which is going to be massively impacted. The more accurate this becomes.
Yes and no. I think it's obvious it should be, because large language models ingest a lot of text and pump out a lot of text. So that's basically should really eliminate law when you think about it. But how LLMs work is that basically with law, it needs to be completely infallible. You cannot have a situation where it produces an output where it may be 99% and it has to be nailed on 100%. And we've already seen some of the very early legal cases against law firms where lawyers have used ChatGPT outputs and they've been revealed to be erroneous. And that is the end of the story as far as that legal firm's concerned. So I think theoretically, yes, but the risk factor and the requirement for legal infallibility means that there'll be a sticking point before that completely goes.
Yeah, when I look at that though, but I think it might not give you the whole answer, right? But I was talking to a guy in Pakistan randomly about 3 weeks ago, and he owns a 150-man IT consultancy. And he was saying that he's fully adopted AI as part of the way that they write their code, but he's now able to provide quotes to people that want to build applications, which might have been 6 months or 12 months work. And he's now able to deliver that in a month. He literally said, I'm now giving people like sprints of work, which is 30 days, which would have cost them 10x. So it's really lowered the barrier. So I wonder whether that organization that doesn't adopt it compared to, you look at McKinsey as well, actually. McKinsey have said they're now adopting it. They've got smaller teams. They're now using loads of AI to provide service. So I guess is it just the fact that some companies will be augmented with it, so they'll be able to do things faster and
it's
quicker?
The nature of the work, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just jumping in that. Every sector actually makes a difference.
Yes.
So code is one of the most, again, text in, text out, really. So it's one of those like maximally obvious places where it would work. Marketing as well, to be honest, lots of generating of that copy and stuff. But there's other areas that have other requirements. And law, paradoxically, yes, it's all like letters on documents, but it's also the power of needing to get it right.
Yes.
And that infallibility means you can't really use Gen AI for it. So yeah, I think it will be uneven is the reality of it. The distribution of an impact will be very uneven sector by sector. Sorry, Sean.
But I just see it as like, what you've said is there needs to be 100% right. So then someone's role will be that. It'll become that. So that it'll be the time of crunching will be taken away. Yes. Think about conveyance law when you're buying a house, right? I was on a retreat, a men's health alcohol-free retreat last September. I'm going again 2 weeks' time. Wicked. Wow. That's a completely different topic. Anyway, on there with a guy who owns a law firm in Leeds. And he was saying how like conveyance law when you're buying a house is so slow. Like it's ridiculous. It can be 6 to 8 months nowadays in the process. And it's literally like the conveyance lawyer has a pile of paperwork.
Yep.
And they just work through one by one. So they get one question, they send out the one email or the one question back around the searches, and they just put it back to the bottom of the pile. So you're not going to get it. They're not even going to look at it again. And he's like, that process is going to be disrupted so quick.
Yes.
There'll still be a conveyance lawyer, but they'll be able to do so much faster, so much more. So I think there'll still need to be the human element to it, because who's going to ultimately, someone's got to be blamed if it's wrong, right?
I was about to say the accountability.
And you can't blame OpenAI or whatever the LLM.
So it's just a tool to expedite the process.
You can blame OpenAI, can't you? But OpenAI won't let you blame OpenAI because you would have signed a waiver.
Exactly.
To say,
so
ChatGPT.
So if I'm a law firm and I'm responsible for the case, and I'm not going to then deflect, I can't deflect to OpenAI. So I've got to build a model around it that says we're going to remove 60% of the time, but we're going to put all of our effort into making sure it's right, or interpreting that data difference.
Ben, you're saying that 75% of people are tinkerers, right? So they're at the very, very start of that journey. How are you seeing it, guys? You guys are talking to people across corporates right now.
I'd say similar. I'd say there's just so many people talking and not that many people doing a lot. Like the actual action at the moment, it's note takers and it's writing emails. It's pretty much what most people are doing with it. Right. And they're not got like, we're releasing an AI training program in the next month or so, which will be similar to my training for LinkedIn. It'll be how to effectively use ChatGPT across all areas of the recruitment process properly. Because when you actually scrape what people are doing, and they haven't got a clue, and they are blinded by every tool in the market, which is creating incredible overwhelm, because who needs more and more software? It's a bit like the idea we were talking about pre-show, what you're trying to do. People want to go one to one place and get most of their things done. So I think when you scrape under the barrel of what people are actually doing, it's very little on the whole.
Yeah. Where are you sat with that, Hung? When you're talking to all these guys?
100% agree. I mean, arguably Ben and I might be speaking to the same audience, but there is that. I would also have created three groups on there. And you've got these leading edge transformers that have literally nuked their own business and completely transformed. And we'll wait and see how those guys get on. Then you get the mass majority that are tinkering, probably sometimes dangerously, because a lot of the use of AI is actually undirected in business and it's not actually governed. So people don't know how to do it, and probably they're doing stuff with chat GBTs that they shouldn't be. And then you get the sort of middle group, which are quite advanced and they've got a plan. They've probably got a good relationship with technology vendors and technology providers, and they're integrating heavily. So that's the journey. I think it's pretty accurate as Ben described it.
So that's the kind of state of play where they are in the process. What do you think people's mindset is?
One of two, I think: fear or incredible opportunity.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, without wanting to slice and dice stuff, and as a leadership person, I love a 2x2 grid. But I think you've got fright, flight, fear, or like whatever, that you've got that fear, like, oh my goodness, is this gonna kill my business? Am I gonna have a job?
Yeah.
You've then got that like excitable person who's like, oh my goodness, like let's log on for every free like go at something and integrate this straight away. And arguably that's probably the two most dangerous areas in any organization. The laggards who are like, nope, it'll come back around. Pen and paper will come back around. And the overexcitable, like, let's deploy everything in our business right now.
That's where I really advise against all the time. I'm like, I said it today, you can look at every part of your business and you could probably make a business case that there's transformation required and there's tools out there to impact it. But how do you do that? Like, it's just not feasible. So it's like, I think every quarter you should be looking at one major part of to work on within an AI, to implement AI, and you should be able to do it in a 3-month period with the tools you've got and the way that it works. But trying to do everything at the same time is a recipe for disaster, I think, and we're seeing it.
There's a bandwidth issue as well, I find. Like we know that the people who are greatest enthusiasts of AI are actually the CEOs. They're very disappointed that none of their heads are actually moving fast enough with deployment, because they can see the rationale, the optimization of business. But if you're an operator, you're managing a team, you've already got an existing process that presumably has worked all right. That's why you're in that sort of senior role. Now you're being basically told to change the wheels of the car as you're going down the road. We don't have time to pit stop, because we've been spending this do more with less period for the last 2-3 years. So we've got a bandwidth problem, and we're starting to even start seeing sort of new roles emerge where the person's job is literally to try and do AI optimizations. I spoke with a recruitment company in the Netherlands that actually hired a guy to do that, because they recognize that their billing consultants were not going to be able to do it in a controlled way. Right, we'll get an ex-recruiter that's really tech-enabled. I want you to look at these processes, and I want you to basically find a way to help us do it faster. So I think these roles will start emerging within every department. It's basically an automation lead, an AI, basically an operations person that knows how to get it done. I don't think it happens otherwise, because we're all 110% maxed out.
Yes.
Yeah. I think there's that kind of change management saying that if you change everything, you change nothing.
Yeah.
Because you'll get people who'll just sit and go, well, everyone's going, you told us to go left last week with this note taker. Well, I know you're going to tell us to go right in again, so I'll fix here. Like, I'll just fix here. And I think Hung, you're exactly right, that you need that specific person whose responsibility it is within the organization, who has the expertise and the wisdom, like the contextual wisdom to say, this is a project we should back, these are the measurables, and we won't change anything else until we finish this experiment. Because otherwise you just layer on, and I see businesses who are the tinkerers layering on little experiments, not even calling them experiments, and everyone thinking in the organization, wow, we've got note takers now, in our HRIS system, everything's automated, we're using AI, we've got chat bots, etc., to coach us. And they are just overwhelmed. Like, there's the bandwidth issue is massive. And you've got managers, like first-time managers, who are now thinking, I've got another 4 things that I need to manage, as well as billing. Like I've still got a billing number over my head, and I've got a team.
How big is that problem? Because I think if you went pre the AI GPT launch, there was an overwhelm of logins and different disparate apps and disconnected tech back then, if I go back 5 years.
Yeah.
And so this abundance of new apps, new technology, agents, automations, is that expediting and increasing the overwhelm, do you think?
Yeah, 100%. It's making people busier, not streamlining it. It's making it busier. It's making you feel busier, making you feel more confused.
Yep.
That's what one of my customers said the other day. Is like, he's really confident in his business model because he said, well, the internet was supposed to make us chill out and it made us busier. So this whole job displacement argument, his argument was, I don't think it's going to be as bad as people say, because I genuinely think it's going to make us busier. It's going to make us more. It's giving us more work to do now. It's going to keep giving us more work to do, because you're going to keep finding more and more use cases where you're going to implement it.
Yeah.
People will change what they do, but people will still be required. This is what he was saying. I just worry about the bigger organizations. Like you said, tinkerers in big organizations, when you can't control it. Like my business was 40, it's now 9. I feel like we've got our arms around everyone. We meet so regularly. We know what everyone's doing. Like I feel like we're so well placed.
Yes.
If we were 40 again, and that's still not a big business, but 40 was a point where you've got teams and meetings going on you don't know about, and it's cottage little conversations. But if you've got a 500, 1,000 person business, I dread to think what it'd be like to try and implement into those companies.
There's definitely an increased demand for planning. That I can see that. I mean, you just have more variables, more opportunities to consider. And I don't know whether you see this, but I think that most of the leaders I work with, I always feel they don't value enough the prioritization, really scrutinizing where the value is in the opportunities that they're exploring.
Yeah, because there's so much out there.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, obviously it's neophilia, I think that's a term, isn't it? Where we're just like totally attracted to the new.
The new shiny.
But especially the fact that the new is being pumped quite hard. It's literally been, the messaging is very, very ubiquitous. And I just recalled sort of a friend of mine who runs a small recruitment agency, and he said, look, the last 3 months I've been spending my time actually stripping AI out of my business, because it turned out no one was reading the notes of the note taker. Right, the note taker was on, but actually what the heck were we doing with the transcripts? Now, you can do something with the transcripts if you had a plan around it. Like, Are you actually mining that intelligence? Are you getting insight from it? Are you figuring out actually, where is our recruitment capability based on how bad our interviews are? If you're doing all of those things, then great. But he was running quite a small recruitment agency, about 7, 8 consultants or whatever, and they're all like in the room. He knew how good or bad they were. So it was a superfluous tool. So he said, no need for it. We're wasting our time. Let's get rid.
Where do you sit with that from a overwhelm and planning management perspective?
I think we are at a point where the overwhelm is really there. And also, of course, products are pushing their upgrades, etc., to all of us. Like my note taker of choice, I had an email this morning on the train on the way in. It was like, great news, right?
Price has gone up.
No. Well, no, that's going to come after this bit. That would definitely come after this. But great news. Insert note taker name will now be your conversation coach as well in the meeting. And I was thinking, well, that's brilliant. But actually, all I want you to do, all I've opted for you to do, is do the transcripts, create actions, etc. I don't want a distraction in that conversation where you are giving me real time. I haven't asked for that, but it does it now, and the price will come after that. So I think in product led growth, you're going to get more. We're going to get more and more features and modules pushed at everyone.
You can't handle it.
You can't handle it, and that's me as a business owner. Now thinking, right, I've got my team of 8 who all have that note taker of choice because we have made a decision that is beneficial for our sales process and our diagnostic calls with customers, so we can create the solution that they need. But I now know this morning, 4 out of those 8 will be like, this is great. Let's have a little play with that. They've already predetermined what the most important thing is for them today, and they'll lose half an hour, 40 minutes having a play with that. Now, if you put that across an industry of recruiters, billing managers, etc., you just see the compound of wasted effort and time. and people going in the wrong direction. And so it then takes a really strong team leader, manager, leader skill set to keep your people have clarity and be on track, etc.
But that's where you're at, Sean, isn't it? This you're worried about as these businesses get bigger, the compounded effect of that.
Yeah, 100%. I'm like, the process doesn't change what you want to do. What you're trying to achieve doesn't change. How you get there is changing. The opportunities are changing. So it's about having a clear dot to dot of what you do, and then slowly but surely working through each one, and not getting one working and then going, oh shit, there's a new development to the tool and a product. Let's all just forget. It's like, that'll work, let it run, and then we move. And marginal gains. It's not about the 80%, it's the 20%. It's the little bits that make the biggest difference. Well, one of the things I say a lot is, like, you've got all the software in the world, yet you're paying for it. LinkedIn is actually where you're spending all your time and you're paying all your money for, right? You're literally killing yourself to pay Recruiter. I ask people, are you checking it before work? Yep. Check it at night? Yep. Check it in bed? Yep. Every fucker's just glued to it. And I'm like, all right, so you're looking at all these tools, everything else. Cool. But you've got 5,000 connections. Are they candidates and clients in your market? Oh, yeah. How many of them have released jobs in the last 12 months or moved jobs in the last 12 months that you could have managed and you didn't because you didn't spoke to them? Loads of them. All right, cool. So we're looking at all this shite.
Yeah.
And right in front of us is a gold mine that we're not using. Now, how we tap into that can be, you can use AI. There's so much you can do. But what we're doing is we're thinking, we can blast 10,000 emails here and 50,000 emails here. And we can buy this data here. And we can do all. If you think about the nuts and bolts of Recruitment Desk, it was getting 500 people to know us and trust us and love us and playing musical chairs with them. That was what we did. And I don't think it's changing. And I think the more AI and the more in-house teams, and it's going to blast anyone who sells time. If I say to a company, I'm going to go and do a process. I'm going to find you this many people. I'm going to do all this. I'm going to sell time. I don't really know who they are yet, but I'll figure it out. That's going to be gone. I genuinely believe that will be automated, and in-house teams with AI will nail that. But getting the response is going to be the hardest thing in the future, because we're getting blasted out. You check your emails. Go and look at your spam filter. How many messages a day get filtered? Getting the reply is going to be the most important thing. And I think that's where the person with the value, with the brand, with the knowledge, with the relationships, using the right AI in small avenues to do what they always have done, I think it's going to be even more valuable.
And that leads us nicely into this internal versus external agency debate, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because AI is going to make people less receptive to traditional outreach.
It can be numb, yeah.
And it's going to be more difficult to do that. And I think that the social platforms, LinkedIn included, will then pounce on that and put the controls in place to ensure that their assets, your ability to contact their people, becomes more valuable.
Yeah.
And actually, I've spoken quite a lot about this, but I think it potentially becomes a closed community, closed to AI.
Yeah.
Actually, I think LinkedIn's mission in this world will generally be, I'd imagine if they're sat in the boardroom today, they're probably talking about how do we protect the humanity of the platform and get these avatars and agents and processes out so that we can.
Well, they've always been very
yeah.
fierce about their lack of desire to have automation compared to like Instagram.
But like
TikTok.
you said, they're probably looking at that more than ever as a gold mine because of those depleting contact rates externally.
Yeah.
And technology will enable them to do that. But Hunger, when you look at this, so it's a great intersection to dive into the internal recruitment teams and just to understand where those guys are at. So before we get onto our agency world and how they may be impacted, there's going to be change internally.
Yeah, and the in-house guys are in a high anxiety sort of mindset for sure, because obviously we've had just general economic, so the global macro is bad for recruitment. We know that's true, and every recruiter really wants a growing environment. We want more jobs. So we've had a long period of time where we're kind of in this high pressure scenario. Technology is going to make a huge impact, particularly LinkedIn. And we can't underestimate how significant LinkedIn is as a product. Because if you think about LinkedIn, in my opinion, created the internal recruiter. Back in my day when I was an agent, only like megacorps, only banks really had anybody internally doing the job, and that person was really just an ad manager buying media spend, or they were managing recruitment agencies and giving you the jobs. What LinkedIn allowed companies to do was suddenly to start having access to candidate data. Previously, only agencies had the time to build that knowledge. LinkedIn gave you that knowledge because all you do is just subscribe to it. So I think TA or internal recruitment really is very dependent on one big technology moment. Now, AI, I think, is another big technology moment, and I think it'll have a similar impact on where talent acquisition is. On the one hand, you can see the bull case, which is, you know what, TA gets more empowered, they're going to outcompete recruiters, they're going to be this, that, and the other. No question, still, their top thing they want to do is reduce recruiter spend, right? So they're still there. But there's another way of looking at AI, which is quite threatening for TA, which is that the true user of the AI may no longer be a specialist recruiter internally, but it will go back to the hiring manager. So the tasks of finding candidates, the task of outreaching to candidates fall back into the line, because actually candidates want to hear from the line. But now you've got AI doing all of the stuff that TA used to do. So TA has that existential crisis. I think that will happen for a lot of companies, and I believe the TA function will have to radically transform. Maybe it turns into a coaching sort of job to those hiring managers on how to do sourcing ethically. Maybe it turns into a job where you're training AI agents to behave compliant to the law. Maybe you do have an inclusion and diversity mindset when you come to screening these candidates. But it could be the person who's doing the generate candidates, send outreach, is actually a hiring manager rather than a specialist recruiter.
Why do you think that?
Purely because the candidate responds better. The engagement crisis that you guys touched upon, I think, will definitely start happening. So it's an engagement cliff, actually. It's AI is going to basically get better results, and then it's going to last for about 3 months, and then everyone's going to think, oh my goodness, that's AI, I'm out. You can even just monitor your own psychology. When you receive a message, I'm straight away thinking, is that actually generated by AI? And if it is, I'm not even reading on. It could be the most, beautifully crafted big piece of literature. I'm skipping. And I think we'll have the same attitude. So engagement cliff goes down.
See, I don't want to stop your track, but I don't think I measure that, whether I reply, whether it's AI, it's whether I recognize the person or the brand.
I was about
and
to say,
99% of the time, I have no idea. There's
Sean,
no context. And they pretend they know you, and they just don't know you.
I was about to say exactly that. The message is far less important than the messenger. And again, you just simply do your own experiment. Ask your customer who's a CEO to do random messages that are non-crafted. He or she will generate far higher response rate than any recruiter, no matter how well crafted. So it makes sense for the messenger to come from the most highest impact messenger, and that's not the recruiter.
I resonate with that massively, just thinking about how I do BD for our business. And I agree, like when you get a message or an email, I'm almost looking now for where they've put the automation in, or, they're clever, this is your business, insert first name, whatever. But even, like LinkedIn comments and stuff, you can see you can tell when something is AI automated. But like as a little experiment in terms of people seeking the human first interaction and that connection, I use WhatsApp now to interact with all of my high value customers. And the majority of it is voice notes. Yeah. Because voice notes from the founder of a business to a key decision maker land, they can listen to, I get a voice note back, we do business, etc. So I think it's really interesting. You're both talking about this engagement cliff. I think there's a shift to what do we trust? What do we trust that is genuine, authentic communication? Whether that's sales, whether that's candidate outreach, or whether that's internal as well. Like the last thing a human employee wants is an AI leader or an AI coach who doesn't really understand the empathy from where they're coming from. Their kids have been up all night, etc. They've been at A&E for, whatever. And so they're late. Like they're just late. Doesn't matter how well you train an LMN or a narrow language model. It's not going to have that kind of ethereal grit behind it that we all seek out, I think.
Yeah, there's several layers to that, isn't there? You're talking there really about the relationships once you've got them and your ability to then, that personal relationship from founder to your customer base.
I think you're right. I think you can also build that in first first contact.
Yes, and that's where you go from, Hung, where the line manager or a more senior person, more credible person with their market, their brand becomes really important
100%.
for corporates to be able to engage with their candidate communities.
This goes back to what I said in 2016, right? When I was researching, I was like, I had 26 recruiters working for me, 5 in the market, basically doing what I used to do on my own. And I was telling these recruiters to phone a candidate or a client that I had a relationship with, reference me, say I work for Sean, try and use that to get in the door. And then I get a text off someone going, oh, Billy Big Balls don't ring us anymore. Just had your little minion phone me or whatever. Like, it was funny, right?
Yeah.
I then go to LinkedIn and start talking at scale about what I'm building, because they didn't know I was being promoted. They didn't know I was suddenly a team leader. They didn't know I had all these people around me. So I started talking about it. Started introducing Adam and Dominique and all these people who work for me. Suddenly, the piss taking went away. When they reached out, they're like, oh, I know you. I recognize you. And it was like, so it was the same thing you just said. It's like the messenger, the message coming from me, who built the established relationships, who built the money, who they trusted, was so different than someone phoning up on my behalf. It was completely different. And I think it's the same principle now. The bit that goes really weird, which we could discover, is agent to agent conversation. That's what someone was saying to me last week. It's like, what if your agent is phoning 50 candidates and they've all got their own agent? So like simultaneous conversation happening all the time. So like your agent can be speaking to that hiring manager and that hiring manager and that recruiter, and then coming back to you at the end of the day going, I've had all these conversations and these are our best options, Sean.
And that sounds
bonkers, but it's possible.
Well, yeah, it sounds actually like the very simple next evolution of an answer machine that we have on our phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just happens to be an intelligent one that then understands what you're interested in, what you're not interested in.
Yeah.
And then is able to filter those calls. So I think in a very short period of time, we'll have digital receptionists that are able to communicate and understand if there's an interest, and then create that interest into a Calendly or book a call.
But that's why when people say, because I talk about this quite a lot on LinkedIn, a lot of people say this will never work. No way is an AI like voice agent going to be able to get hold of a candidate and have a conversation. I'm like, I'm not convinced of that.
Yes.
I don't think that. If they've got the right messenger, and you've got the messenger's got they've got the network and they trust that person, and it's like, look, I'm on behalf of Sean Anderson, Hungley, whatever, want to have a conversation with you. I'm going to book you in with Sean, but as you can appreciate, we're speaking to a lot of people right now. Like, whether it is the person or their agent having that conversation, I think that's where it's going to go.
But I think you're going to get a leveling up, aren't you? Like, my agent I would then train my agent to filter out the types of things that your agent might do from a coding perspective. So you then get leveling up of agents. I've got the most advanced agent who now knows that your agent isn't a human.
Yeah.
And then you've got this whole credibility issue, whereas if you've got first mover advantage potentially, but then everyone has that, and then you've got a point where people are like, well, I don't know who to trust.
Yeah.
So what do I do then?
You're going to revoke your attention in the same way we generally revoked our attention from our phones, right? I mean, who here has a landline? I mean, recruiters might do, but I don't.
Nope.
When's the last time you picked up a phone from an unknown call? And I guarantee you, if you do remember that, it was a disappointing experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're going to have the same sort of attitude to the inbox, where we're going to revoke our attention. It's like, literally, I'm not going to pay attention to that. Maybe I'll get a bot to go through that and potentially ping back everyone who message me, and then see whether we can filter out from there what's interesting. And then end of the week, maybe I get a notification from the bot I've trained to say, look, here are 10 messages that I think you should automate a call back. So I think AI mediating communication is probably an inevitable future. That, again, that's a recruitment opportunity, it's a business opportunity, because someone's going to get good at doing that.
But let's join the dots up there. Sean, I'm pretty sure that if someone wants to have a chat with you, they have to book it in a Calendly type. Is that right? Or is that you, Ben? I can't remember. One of you guys uses that?
I use HubSpot
booking
links for my calls, but if
Yes.
someone, I can also just say, look, I'll give you a buzz or book it in directly on LinkedIn.
But I think if you look at the majority of candidate or customer calls that Recruiter has today, the majority of those are booked calls.
Oh,
only.
yeah. Go back to 2016, 2015, we had an empty diary most days, unless you were in a physical meeting.
Absolutely.
Now it's back to back to back to back.
Yeah, you book calls. So let's just work that out right. All we're really talking about here is that we're giving up the control of who we're booking that meeting with. We're already scheduling meetings into slots all day.
Yeah.
So actually, this is that agent which is just actually intelligently working out whether this is or is not a call that is interesting to me, it doesn't seem like a very far-fetched idea, really. If I'm prepared to take calls about jobs, I'm open to work. Currently, I've told my bot I'm open to work, I'm interested in these things, and I'll take calls about it between 5 and 7 p.m. at night. Yeah. Don't make the calls any longer than 15, 20 minutes. Someone calls, find out if it meets these needs, and it's off booking the call. So I guess, it's not, doesn't seem like it's a huge set of steps away from where we already are.
There's some apps already that are trying to do this quite well. I mean, right now it's a bit one-sided in the sense that there's intelligent scheduling apps out there that can figure out more than just availability on your calendar, because there's context about whether that hold is available.
Yeah.
There's a difference between a 30-minute availability and a 30-minute non-availability,
Yes.
or what our mood is at the time. Like, can we tell how pissed off Sean is in the morning compared to the afternoon? Over time, we'll figure that out, because your activity with it is going to tell, actually, you're better off having this type of conversation in this slot, generally speaking, here.
And I'd suggest, actually, that agents are probably better fit, right? Because, look, my response to someone calling me is dependent on time, mood, worked out, other things on my mind. It's not dependent on whether they would have the best job for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, and actually, the moment I can take that fatigue, emotional aspect to it, and I can literally have a bot that properly analyzes, and we've seen how powerful GPT-5 is at analyzing stuff, right? That can scientifically analyze an opportunity based on me, my profile, what works for me, the types of things I'd be interested in, types of, go to a much more scientific level of determining if your agent or your agent or your agent is representing the best opportunity for me to book a call in and speak to the recruiter about. That doesn't seem very far away. But let's come back, because there's two lenses to look at, right? One of the things we've spoken about is LinkedIn, which is really super important. But that is only one part of the market. But in this narrative, I think it's important, right? Because we have a social care company, a super care. We're hiring, I think we're growing maybe 40 or 50 people a month. Those guys, 95% of them are not coming from LinkedIn, right? They are coming from web responses and adverts, right? And so when you look at that internal recruitment, we're coming back to you, Hung, because we're coming down to that internal lens. We first need to determine what areas of recruitment are going to be affected most significantly.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. LinkedIn is large. I mean, they've got 1 billion profiles apparently, but let's say a bunch of those might be dormant, dead, not real. But they probably cover about maybe 700 million people. But there's 8 billion people on the planet, of whom you can imagine maybe 2-3 billion are actually working. So it's not the overall number of people actually in work.
Is it fair to say it's a professional?
Yeah. It's white-collar, office-based work. If you're sitting in front of a computer screen, typing into a keyboard, chances are you have a profile on LinkedIn. But your frontline work, actually where the hiring crisis is right now in terms of can't get candidates, construction, healthcare, teaching, they're all frontline, and they're typically either not on LinkedIn at all or have a very light dormant footprint.
Teaching's growing quite quickly on LinkedIn.
Really? Yeah.
We're seeing more and more clients coming from teaching recruitment, but you bang on there. Bang on.
So the question would be, the internal recruiters, I think the ones that are kind of working across disciplines, across domains, and they've got a skinny team, I think will lean on third-party recruiters for those specialist roles, because they can't cover them all. Ad response will not solve all of the problems they need to solve. I used to be one of those people where you had to recruit up and down the stack, the entire job lot. And the problem you have there is that you've got to build market knowledge on like 10 different jobs. And you can't do that as effectively as a third-party recruiter, particularly not for like a non-repeat job. So it's a waste of my time to have a deep database of CFOs, for instance, if I know I'm going to hire this one time and I'm never going to recruit for it again. That's a headhunter, stick it to a headhunter. They take care of that.
So let's drill into it a bit. So where do we see AI winning and succeeding and failing with internal? I think you were talking about the fact that where we're not getting responses from LinkedIn and it's in across multiple domains, that's where internal is going to massively struggle.
Well, yes, but I think what the internal will solve that, I think, by basically tapping into the line managers to do it, and they will be better on aggregate than a third-party recruiter. Even generally speaking, I mean, there's going to be some third-party recruiters that have got such an amazing brand within a domain that they're going to be like heroes in there, and people will take the call.
And
That's because you're suggesting here that the tools that AI is going to provide will become available, the automations and all of the technology will become available to line managers for them to use to drive their outreach into LinkedIn or other areas.
There's absolutely no doubt that's the plan.
Yes.
Because that's just increasing user base. So if you're a vendor selling software, you want number of seats, you need number of users, and that's more ticket value. So right now, if you look at the percentage of internal recruiters compared to the numbers of employees, it's about, for a tech company, it's about 1.2%. It used to be 1.8%. I'm selling software. I'm only selling to 1.2% of the business. Wouldn't it be better if I sold to 20%?
Also, if you think about it, if you're in any discipline, any domain, if there's a potential of you building a team, it would make sense if part of your job from day one was to build a network of potential employees in your team, right? And if you had the tools to do that, to grow the connections and become a voice and network and nurture, and you're not going to have something for them every day, but if that was became part of like mainstream leadership, you'll know more than me about that, but if that was the case, then it would massively make sense that you plug in the right tool. You say, right, your first day, you've got this job which is 80%, but if we believe there's a people element to this role, it's going to grow, then you've got to you're going to be a recruiter. And nowadays we've got PIN or all these different tools which gives you access to so much. You're probably going to have a performance coach, maybe will train you how to use it instead of having a recruiter.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because you can listen to a bunch of podcasts, bunch of HR experts talking about how AI is going to do away with the job of the manager. Like, the manager doesn't need to exist. We can have really flat organizations, no managers, no leaders. And actually, the points that you both, or three of you, have just brought up is actually there's a transformation in the manager's role potentially internally. Software vendors are going to sell to managers. They want seats. So if as a manager within an organization, your role is to lead a team. That team may be different, a blend of agents and humans. It's going to be a blend of agents and humans, but you're going to need to be able to recruit those humans and develop those agents and interact with them. Your job is an incredibly complex one already. Now let's move it forwards a couple of years. It's going to be even more complex. So we need managers to skill up massively. Then come on to the agency side in terms of recruitment agencies and staffing businesses. We've talked about, you two have both talked about those managers in those recruitment consultancies needing to have personal brands to be able to attract and interact with those managers. Like, that's a massive skill set in terms of personal branding, being able to add value, being able to sell really well, etc. Manage a community. Manage a community maybe off LinkedIn as well, and build that community and nurture that community as well. So you've got a completely different leadership and management skill set needed in today, not the future. Like, it's needed now. And we've still got only 25-27% of managers actually get any training as to how to manage people. So what are they going to get in terms of how to manage recruitment processes, how to manage agents?
Are you seeing leadership teams lean in to their leaders to take more responsibility in recruitment? Is that something you've witnessed?
I would say that interestingly, we're seeing a big uptick in not just contemporary leadership skill sets. So how do we lead people from a performance and a well-being perspective? How do we lead people in a hybrid and remote setting? Like, what's the difference? That's come up massively in the last couple of years. And then this year, we've just signed 2 big programs, one with a fashion brand, one with a recruitment brand, which is how do we teach our leaders how to use AI more effectively? It hasn't been yet about how do we recruit better, how do we identify, how do we job sculpt, etc., and go to market for ourselves yet. But I've got some ideas now on that. So thanks, guys. That's a product coming soon.
But you're right. That's an interesting point, isn't it? That as those line managers start to build and manage teams of AI agents and their human team, they will have all of the AI employees available to them to do their own team recruitment. From setting one up to post my social posts, or whatever it might be, any automations, my ability to then go, oh, well, I also need this to post my job adverts and post a bit of content and promote it into LinkedIn or other platforms, that absolutely does seem like a natural progression.
Do you know what, though?
That would happen in my team.
I want to just interject on it, because when you said the social posting, it really...
Yep.
There's one thing making something quicker and easier, but there's another thing making it better or good enough. Because I'd say, I know the data is 150% increase in content on LinkedIn in the last 18 months and a 200% drop in engagement rates. So you're talking a 50% decline in engagement across LinkedIn per average post, right?
Right.
So why? Because it's shit. Because you're just putting out more rubbish. So a recruiter or a hiring manager might have the access to be able to do more, but it doesn't mean it's going to get the result. It doesn't mean... So the way I look at it is maybe really simple. I think the open to work, where it's always been the job advertising, people are desperate, people want to work, I just think that stuff will be done. But I still think the headhunting, I still think the finding of people from one organization and getting them out, I think it'll be a combination of agents and recruiters, but I think you're going to need to be even better at selling. Your content's going to be even better. You're going to have to be more compelling. You're going to have to be more authentic. You're going to have to be better.
Yes.
But the one or two people that are good in each space, I think are going to make serious.
Are we coming back to the same point, though, which is that it is the in-demand, candidate-constrained markets that are going to be the problem here? So it's going to be the evolution of human skills to tap into the tough to find in-demand candidates
100%.
and the more broadly, I mean, look, you've spoken about construction and these other markets. My point would be that on that, they're more difficult, but people are still relying on adverts.
Yeah, and
web responses.
Adverts are the right way to hire for those folks. You're not going to headhunt a construction guy.
Yeah.
Although you probably would use a network. I mean, you would get referrals and stuff like this. But it reminded me of Mark Zuckerberg has probably conducted the most expensive personal recruitment campaign in history.
Yep.
But he did it himself. He didn't trust his recruitment team. He didn't trust third-party agent. He was thinking, these people are not going to speak to anybody else apart from me, because these people are worth 100 million quid sign-on bonus. Even £1 billion, like in terms of total comp. That's ridiculous. But he was the one doing the outreach. So I think will happen. It's an example of sort of the recruitment job folding back into the line, because no one else is going to trigger a response, no matter how well crafted. Managers are going to have to do a lot of that. Some recruiters that are super networked are going to be very, very successful, because they're going to have the reputation.
That's what I believe. But if I'm the line and I've got that responsibility now, and I'm like, I've got this agent and I'm doing all these things and it's great, but if I know you and you have got a track record of performance in my space, I'm going to be even closer to you.
Yeah, and
I'm going to back you even more.
There might be a situation. I mean, Mitch Sullivan says this often. It's like, actually, a lot of people just hate recruitment. A lot of line managers really would just have zillion things to do. Yes, it's important, but you know what? If I could outsource one thing, it would be that.
I say it's the least desirable purchase on the planet.
Yeah.
No one's ever woke up and gone, fuck, I can't wait to do that today. I can't wait to go and find a person to work for me. It's just never happened. And pay it externally.
Yep.
It's never happened. So that's why my whole thing is you've got to be different. You've got to go bigger than just transactions. You've got to build relationships. You've got to help people at scale. You've got to talk bigger. I'd like to propose the question around job displacement, right? What are our thoughts? Because if you go to Instagram, maybe it's just my fucking algorithm, but the world is ending by 2030, right? If you consume enough of this shit, I've actually deleted it to the point where I check it for 1.5 hours a week. I've got it in my diary for 90 minutes to consume from people I want. I'd spend a lot of money on meta advertising, so I want to learn and see what the best ads are like. And then I'm out, because I'm like, it's not good for the mental health.
If I do ever go down the rabbit hole, I don't often spend much time on social media, but my way of getting over it is I start clicking on polar bears and sharks continually. Just
change your algorithm.
Change the algorithm.
Just give it a complete new echo chamber.
Yeah.
But where are you sitting with the displacement of jobs, guys?
The world is volatile, uncertain, and changing, like completely. So you've got a bunch of businesses, bunch of organizations, state organizations, where there will be some displacement of jobs. Like they're just going to be jobs that can be automated, etc., that are very task repetitive jobs. they're going to be automated where there's cost savings and performance improvements. But I think we've all talked about how complex all these different tasks are, different roles are. What I think is going to happen is I think there will be like moments of crisis where there's like a little like shift and something changes and people are like, well, that's that career gone. But people will reskill, people will operate in different ways. And I think if you look at the internet, you look at the iPhone, you look at, I didn't want to talk about the horse and cart and car, but if you look at like changes in how people have operated, they've actually been slower than people have always thought beforehand. Like you look back in retrospect, you see the adoption has been slower. And right now, I think we're all thinking about the early adopters and the early adopting careers and technological advances. Everyone screams about the early adoption because it's sexy and exciting. Actually, what you see is a really slow tail. And so I think in some discrete areas, it's going to be a cliff. And we need to support those people and retrain them, etc. But I think in the majority of areas, there's going to be a change because there's so much else that will need to be done in an organization to stay competitive.
And when you look at displacement of jobs, though, you can look at that through two lenses as well, right? Which is one where if you take your three categories of people that were adopting AI, you've got people which are integrators and early adopters and tinkerers, right? So those are people which are making improvements to the way they operate. Okay? Mm-hmm. That, for me, is going to be a slow process. Okay, so that's one risk, isn't it? That I start to replace my existing teams with people. On the other hand, are these transformers? Now, are they the greater threat to job displacement, where people are coming up with novel ways of solving existing problems using AI?
I think so. I mean, I'm probably a little bit more pessimistic than Ben on this, simply because I think the inevitable purpose of automation is actually profit maximization.
Yeah,
right?
I do.
So the embedded imperative of anybody running businesses, I think we all run businesses here. If you could do something at the same level or better, cheaper, you're going to do it. And if you didn't do it, you'd be fired as a CEO. Your job is to make that decision. So AI, I think, is certainly a pathway to that. You look at VCs is a good way to think about where the money's sloshing in. Almost all VC money is going into AI investments right now. And what they're looking at when they talk about the opportunity, the $4 trillion opportunity is payroll, right? So all of the products that they're supporting are basically there to replace payroll. And the only products getting bought by enterprise are the ones that actually take from payroll. Because all the heads of department are sitting there thinking, I've got to reduce my costs.
Yeah, because saving money is a much quicker or much more tangible outcome than making more. But I think that's where we'll end up getting to, is that it'll end up at the moment, it's like, how do we make the same amount of money, reduce cost? And it's got to go to a point where we're like, how do we make more money with this? How do we produce more? And then it will require more people again in a different way.
I think that is the pattern. But what will happen is in that interim, in that down turn, there'll be a massive amount of unemployment as a result of it. Because the truth of the matter is we're going to be able to make more effective output with far less human resources. And the global macro does not help. The insecurity, the economic chaos, the high cost of living. You're running a business now. You're not thinking, oh, great, I'm hiring 10 people. Brilliant. But maybe we thought that in 2021. Only 4 or 5 years ago, we were thinking, great, I'm hiring, I'm excited. Now you're terrified of bringing a single headcount on because, right, that's expensive, that's hard to do. And what if the market suddenly turns in a direction I didn't
But you
anticipate?
also think, do I need it when I could find a tool? Like,
exactly.
Every CEO is going, well, do we really need that person? And that's what I think is going on in recruitment. Everyone's talking about, I think I was at the event today, 1.2 million jobs down to 700,000 or something right now in the UK in the last 30 weeks or something. It's changed.
Sorry, these are published jobs, right? Any
so.
jobs, yeah.
Yeah, I think this was what the team event said. It wasn't my data, but I think that's it isn't down to AI doing people's work. It's down to people hesitating on hiring because they're like, let's find out if there's a better way. And I think that's the conversation everywhere right now, including me. We've gone from 40 to 9. I don't really want to hire more people. I prefer my business at 9. The bit that I'm worried about is another question. Like, I genuinely think is the bit that profit maximization is quite a short-term mindset, because at what point does job displacement affect people buying services?
I think
So that companies can't. If every company is operating at a £9.99 or £100 a month kind of subscription model, they might be okay. But when it's enterprise services, the more you chip away at your own company and displace the middle class, the more it's going to somehow come round on your sales engine, because people won't be able to buy your product. So we have to think
that becomes a price point, then, doesn't it? So the price, the point is that you have to
everything
then operate on
drops
price.
cost. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you take a macro outlook at that, that's absolutely where it's at. I don't know if everyone else sees that, but we talk about this getting to a world of abundance of services, products and services, and I cannot see any way in which in the future the price of these goods and services are lower, significantly lower. You look at robo-taxis, they're being deployed. We spoke about this last time.
Yeah,
You've been in a
Waymo's.
Waymo, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, Waymo are hiring in the UK now. They're hiring
Is this
in
the
London now.
robo-taxi company?
Yeah. So Waymo's Google,
Yes.
I think. Google Jaguar kind of blend.
Yes.
So I jumped one in Austin. And
What was it like?
Well, it was awesome. Like, I was on Uber and I was like, no, I'm going to wait for a Waymo. Like, declined. All my stars are dropping like crazy. I'm like, this better be worth it. And we got in, and like, the experience was brilliant, but the problem came the next day. So I think we were talking about this. The next day we went out for a run, like early morning in Austin, and we were running on a path next to the freeway, and there was a Waymo on the freeway and a Waymo trying to join the freeway.
Two Waymos didn't talk to each other.
And they were giving each other way, and they snarled up the whole freeway. Like, you couldn't have written a bad example, or like made it a worse example.
Well, unless every car is that way, it won't work, will it?
Well,
if every car is doing it and they can talk to each other, I'm sure it'll work. But when
then
you've
the
got
next
people in
problem-
an old petrol motor,
But then the next problem becomes the pedestrians. I was at an event last year, and there's a guy talking about actually the problem to fully automated cars is not other fully automated cars, it's pedestrians. Because at the moment, if you step out in front of a Waymo, it will stop. Imagine if you've got all the Waymos in the world. It's only going to take one arsehole to go, well, I'm not going to wait for the green man, like, because I can just stop traffic. And that becomes the problem to society. Actually, everyone thinks the robots are going to stop, and it just takes one not to stop, and all of a sudden you question everything.
Albeit you are still risking life and death there, just as you are with that. Without, you're still taking the same risk again, run over, aren't you?
But without looking, because you believe it's going to stop.
Coming back to that example you gave there, Sean, though, you talked about your team going down from 40 to 9. You're happy. When you think about increasing its performance, are you now thinking about how to deploy AI and systems and processes?
Yeah, I'm thinking, what can I do with the tools around us and the people we've already got? I'm not trying to cut the team down anymore. I don't want to get to me on my own. I think that's not where I'm going. But I could see a world now where we take 3 million to 5-6 million with maybe 1 or 2 employees, which before would have probably required 50 people, 60 people in the model that we had. So selfishly and personally, it's a really exciting time. But I do think if every company has the same mindset, like you say, at some point your products need the price of your products needs to change to assume, so people can still use them.
And where do you sit on that? With your current business?
I think it's an interesting, leadership development facilitators and experts are expensive. Like, they're expensive because they're really good, etc. But you have a burn rate. Like, with a burn rate, if people aren't facilitating workshops, there's a cost of having people on the bench. So a lot of the work that we do is in private equity backed businesses, and so there's lots of money flying in, lots of VC money flying into AI and tech, but lots of private equity money is being deployed in unsexy, old businesses where actually headcount plus tech equals massive margins. And in private equity, like, if I can pour nitro on that older school business and bring that down from 5 years to a 3-year return by hiring people and augmenting those people with advances in AI, then that's what I see lots of the private equity funds doing in the portfolio businesses that we're supporting. They're not going, I'm just going to hold fire on hiring and try and reduce the costs to make us more profitable, because actually what they need, the returns need to be exponentially bigger, because they're the risk of deploying that capital.
Yeah, but that's a very different world than your recruitment agency at the sub 20 staff mark, right?
Yeah.
But the opportunity in that is the fact that what percentage of those people that are going through that transformation are actually going to be successful, are going to be able to make the change of managing AI employees, and or is that a different, younger or different experience or different mindset person that comes into that role? Does a traditional marketing manager now need to look very different? Are they going to make that transformation? Where do you see that, Hung?
And it's a narrow path. Like, I don't think we're not talking about everyone on the boat here. There's a lot of people going to be left on the beach.
Yes.
I think you got a personal responsibility to get yourself on the boat, or at least learn to swim.
Yep.
Because the trends are not going to sort of help you. This is what happens in transformation. This big dip, I think it does happen and will be like future hiring. But there were lots of people spending probably about a century in really grinding times. This is why Charles Dickens is a famous guy today. He was writing about those times when the Industrial Revolution had a huge displacement, and it was a multi-decade sort of experience for a lot of significant parts of society.
And we've seen that, haven't we? I mean, I can go back to 2008, I can go back to 2001 or 2004, I think, where the Iraq War. We have seen companies have huge layoffs at different times. Look at the pandemic. I mean, it's a different example, but we've seen droves, company after company, come out with waves of redundancies. When they need to do it, they will do it. And so it comes back to that point, so it's a narrow path. People have the responsibility to sort themselves out. But I think when you look at, I was in an Uber with someone the other day, and we're talking about AI randomly, and the driver went, "Can't wait for it." We're talking about self-driving cars, and he went, "Can't wait for it." And I was like, looking at me like, really, strange, kind of paradox, really. And I was thinking about him. I was thinking about how many American truck drivers, right? I just happen to know the stat. I'm not sure how many are in the UK, but there are roughly 3 million truck drivers in the US, right? When these are automated, how re-employable are those guys? Where do they go? What do they do? It's a very... And those guys are well paid. Randomly, someone told me that they've been paid, I think it's 70 or 80 grand a year to be a truck driver in the UK.
Yeah.
One thing I would say, though, is I could use the same tool as you. And my knowledge of what I know and I do gives me a completely different edge to you. And I think we've got to remember that like everyone who's in roles right now, corporate roles, sat at desks, have got incredible amounts of knowledge and experience, or you'd hope so. If powered with the right tools, they will be more effective, you'd expect, than just a tool on its own. Like that's the next phase before the tool is completely learning to swim, being part of it, being someone who's AI native or literate is just where I think everyone needs to be. Everyone needs to understand it and think, what do I know? What am I good at in my role that I can do more of, that I can get better of? And then you've got an argument where the CEO's trying to trim. It's like, well, I think I can do more, because that's always that's the counter argument, isn't it? I'm either going to save on cost or I'm going to explode revenue and explode performance.
Yes.
If the world had the mindset of this was going to allow every one of us to do more and do better, be pretty positive outlook, pretty exciting outlook.
But is this revolution different to all previous revolutions? If we go right the way back through humankind from fire and axes, and then we get through right the way through to the Industrial Revolution, okay?
Yeah.
Then we get to the computer revolution. We're now in this intelligence revolution. For me, all of those have been tools at our disposal mainly. The computer revolution maybe is a bridge to that of intelligence. But what percentage of people do you think are now deferring to intelligence, not as necessarily a tool, but as a higher sense of intelligence to themselves? Are they the tool of AI? Do you see what I mean? Are they implementing?
Well, have you seen
AI?
I'm not sure if they're genuine, like the MIT brain scans
Yes,
of someone working on a problem.
They get dumber, right?
It's just the activity. So they get dumber. So you've got the experiment was this. The experiment was giving two groups of individuals, split blind study. One is a problem they need to work on themselves, and one is a problem they can use ChatGPT, insert other, LLM, etc. And then they were doing live MRI scans of brain activity. And the scans are really, really interesting because there's not no activity using ChatGPT. It's close, but it's not no, but it's like green. It's this color.
Yes.
So blue's bad. Blue is cold. Green's like meh. Okay, but it's very central, like very central cortex using ChatGPT. Actually working on something and figuring out something that's novel and new, learning, like just lights up your brain, all the areas it should. Like it's where we want our kids to be when they're at school every day, like lit up. And so I think this is a real genuine risk. I hypothesize that we are all using AI and GPTs to help us do some of like the initial drafting of something to like just speed up time, and then we'll review it and go, cool, okay, that's not how I would say that, etc. I think the real danger, and you do see this in outreach from people as well, is when people are starting off with, this is more intelligent than me, it has all the knowledge and all the context, I think this is wise. And I think that's the problem. I think the problem is where people are seeing it as wisdom rather than just knowledge. They don't have the context, they don't have the experience to go, context, knowledge, there's wisdom.
Yeah. But that is where the biggest threat is to the younger generation coming out of school and out of university, isn't it? Because they haven't got the ability necessarily. Like we can read an email created by ChatGPT and go, well, I wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't. If they haven't worked in the world before, if they haven't got that, then they're coming in blind. But I also look at like growing up. I used to know all my mates' house numbers. Every one of them. I don't even know my wife's mobile number now.
Yeah.
But I don't see that as me being more dumb. I just think my brain is not wired in the same way. My attention is in different direction.
Yes.
I'm still capable. If I really wanted to learn all your numbers, I could do it. I know I could do it. So I'm not too concerned about that brain activity bit, as long as there's brain activity at other parts of the day and other parts of life. Do you know what I mean? If everything in your life is AI, TV, AI, then
yes,
you really are on it. Whereas, there's other parts of my life where my brain is, I think, pumping all the time.
Yeah, but you've learned that. You have gone through that learning process of like you've been through that. So I think the difference is, if you have not gone through that strain, you haven't created those neurological connections. We can forgive us all for like, I don't know my wife's number either. Like she will kill me for that. But if you've never had that intellectual stress,
do you think that's where school will remain? That'll be the reason school will remain what it is. Because you could argue moving forward, what the hell are we teaching kids for, like Pythagoras for, when it's all nonsense? They don't need any information anymore. But to build those foundations, perhaps.
The MIT question, I think there has been some questions over that study. It has been debunked to some degree, and that is that not necessarily is the brain lighting up, being stimulated. I think back to Sean's point there, really, which is that it's not being stimulated because I'm not thinking about that solution. I'm being given the answer to it. So you'd naturally expect the brain to respond differently to receiving rather than to trying to work something out. And but if you play that kind of forward, I think they still need to learn the outcome of it. So let's just take an outreach email. I use a GPT to write an outreach email. It doesn't get the response. It's then up to me to then rework that email with GPT to re-engineer it to get a response. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I guess it's that learning path might be different.
Yeah, hang on, Rez. You know how to do that though, because you learn how to write that email pre-AI.
Yep.
So I think there is an element where the people who've got most advantage are the people that have got domain knowledge pre-AI.
Yeah, that's what I believe.
And then they can become AI enabled. So that's the super worker.
Yeah.
What worries me are the people that don't get on board with the AI. So they're the older workers that can't change, and the younger people that have never had the domain chance, because they never get the chance to learn it.
Okay, here's a question for you. Who do you think better understands how to capture the attention of today's world?
But I think you've got to slice and dice who their target attention is. So, like my boys, like they like Pat Flynn and Pokemon cards like kills me, because he knows if I open a bunch of Pokemon cards, my 7-year-old will sit there for hours, potentially if I let him, and just watch him open Pokemon cards. But that's directed at a specific audience. So I think you've got to look at like your BD outreach email that's going to a line manager or a CEO, etc. you've got context and knowledge, and you're using AI to help
I
that.
would suggest, what if you've got a young kid, right? He's 18, 20 years old, okay, and he's watched Mr. Beast, okay, and he's seen all of these really creative ideas of capturing eyeballs and attentions, and then he sees something that's pretty average and shit, right? And then he looks at your email. What does he think of that?
Is it almost like the future generation will figure it out through the way that they're learning in a different way? Like they're learning in a different way than we did. Because like you say, we learned by remembering mobile, like house numbers. They're watching so much daily that we never got access to. So they're learning in a completely different way. And they're probably developing knowledge of marketing.
Yeah.
Here's an
that we
experiment.
didn't have.
Here's an experiment to do. Like we've all got kids.
Yeah.
If you put your kids in front of YouTube or Netflix or whatever, put them in front of it, let them watch it for 10, 15 minutes, turn it off, ask them what they've just seen. All right. If they're watching Netflix, there's a story, there's a narrative, there's characters, etc. Guarantee you they will recall some of those names, characters, narrative. If you put them in front of YouTube, shorts, etc. There was another experiment that was done recently about like people using GPTs and creating content, etc., and people creating it themselves and what they could recall about what had been created afterwards. And the people who are using the GPTs couldn't recall the content that had been created, but the people who had created it could recall at much higher level what had been created. Why is that important? It's important because at some point you're going to need to access that story, that character, that case study to be able to move someone to make a decision. And if you are just banking on created for you rather than done with you, you're not gonna influence another human.
Every act of technology innovation is an act of de-skilling of the individual. So that's what technology innovation is all about. Driving a car is a good example. How many of us know how to fucking take apart an engine and stick it back together again? Zero. Yet the very early people who were driving cars, they were all mechanics. They knew how to do it, right? But nowadays you don't know how to do it anymore, and it's not a problem. So our challenge now with AI is it going to be a problem that the person doesn't know how to do it in an AI-free environment? And I'm not comfortable with that's quite the same, because there are scenarios where AI can be switched off. Electrical storm, massive something will happen that might. Didn't ChatGPT go down recently? So oh my god, everyone's like total chaos, up in arms, can't operate, and you think, that's putting a lot of
like
eggs
the
in
internet.
baskets.
The internet, the thought of the internet going down, right? That we all lived without it. We're not going to stop that. It's happening.
Yeah.
It's moving. So the pragmatic approach to me is, what are we going to do about it? Like that most of the things I talk about is it's going to happen. Like you sitting here and fearing it ain't changing it. Absolutely. It's going to happen. Just like you're going to get old and you're going to die. You can't stop that bit. So what are you going to do about it? What actions are you going to take? How are you going to mindfully do the best you can do? And it's...
Are people listening to that? Let's just carve into that.
I'd say...
What is the percentages that you think of people who you coach, Sean, that you think actually they've switched it on? And
I think the people that come to me and actually want to work with me is quite high on that front. Like I think the people that don't decide to work with us are probably because of they're in the fear mongering. They're just obsessed with the fear and they can't get out of it. But my clients, I genuinely think my clients see opportunity in it and are excited by it and are trying to see it as a positive.
That's the mindset shift as well. It's like negativity. I'm a bit of a skeptic, but sometimes I've got to monitor that because it's fundamentally useless. You need to have a positive take on the negative. There'll always be a positive on every negative, and you got to lean into that and imagine that future, and that I think can help drive you forward. Negative basically is quite inaction,
but it sells.
Yeah.
But it gets attention. Look at Stephen Bartlett's podcast now, right? Every week.
It's a disaster, apocalypse.
Fucking world's going to end. Yep. It's either extreme dieting techniques, extreme love, sex, or it's extreme war, conflict, AI. That's all he's really doing because he knows it's going to get more and more and more eyeballs.
On the flip side of that, I think the positivity piece, yeah, you're right. It doesn't get as much engagement, but what can you control and what can you influence? Like actually as a business owner, as a recruiter, as someone day to day, like there's so much that's concerning. There is so much that's concerning, but actually it just comes down to what can you control and what can you influence and how can you help the people around you? So your team, like the people you work with, your team, my team. It's actually like, what can we do to control, give them the best tools, give them the best opportunity and the right context, and then how can we influence those people around us in the networks we're in to make the most of this opportunity, because that's where you're going to get longevity in terms of market share, play offense and defense at the same time. I think you bang on if you sit there and think it's a bit concerning, like all the jobs are going to fall off a cliff, then it's going to happen to you because you're looking in the hole.
But if I scrape under the barrel of a lot of customers that we talk to, we don't work with, we do some of them. The first thing they say is the market is not where it was, and there's not enough jobs, and AI is going to affect things. And then when you really get under the bonnet of it, they're not actually working very hard. They don't actually make much contact with people. Yeah, they've not really learned anything for a long time. They're just hoping that the tactics they used. Most of them are living in recruitment agency world. Anyway, most of them are living off 5 to 10 customers they've worked with for 5-10 years. They've spit out a couple of $100K a year, and they've been pretty comfortable in that space. And they haven't kept reinventing themselves and kept learning.
But that's a byproduct of how people get into recruitment, isn't it? So people fall into recruitment to do what they've done for someone else for themselves a lot of the time. What percentage of people do you think open a recruitment agency and say, I want to solve a unique problem, or I'm really here to solve this problem for customers?
Next to none.
Yes, very, very few. You're launching a tech business, you're launching a manufacturing business, whatever that is. What percentage of those guys are absolutely obsessed with a particular problem or opportunity that they have spotted that they want to serve? The majority.
Yeah.
And so what that means is that when it comes to change, that started this business to do what they were doing, not because they wanted to do something different. So change is
Which
not...
is probably why I set up what I set up, because I wasn't that guy.
Yes.
I had to solve something different, something bigger. Like, that was just in my head. I was obsessed with that.
Yes. If you're sat in an agency today, from where you're sat, guys, what do you do? So Hung, hit me with it. What do you do from an internal world right now, looking out onto the external world? Why are internal recruitment teams and businesses going to engage with agencies in the future?
I think it's cost efficiency. Service is no big difference there. If I was a recruitment agent, I would be very aggressive in automating as much as I can, especially top of funnel. You can do a lot of stuff, but then you got to use the extra time. The key thing is, what are you doing with the time you're saving? And the time that you're saving should then be maxing out on that community building, brand building, audience generation, trust building, because that's going to unlock those candidates that will respond to you rather than anybody else. These aren't like necessarily new bits of advice, it feels like. No. But I do think they stand the test of time. They are like really interesting innovations that should be applied on lead generation, contact sort of enrichment, even your basic mapping of the landscape. All of that stuff is compressed now with the technology that we have. That's great. What are you going to do with the time you saved? And that's where, hopefully we can do what we like to call a higher value work, but we've got to make a conscious decision to do that.
Okay, cool. Sean, where do you sit with it?
I'd say it's do less better. So where you're going to be, the in-house capability is, because they have to cater for everything, and they're going to have to, even the implementation of AI, it's going to be across everything. So they've got the biggest challenge. The biggest risk to the recruiter is the hiring manager building his own capability, because they're only going to be bothered about their own teams. But even that, I would still back myself to be a better salesperson than most hiring managers, to be more impactful, to be more influencing, to be more, and for a candidate, I can offer more than just that one opportunity. I can offer the breadth of the market. So I would just I would do a lot less things, and I would do it I'd try and be as effective as possible. So
it's an interesting one. So I was just reflecting on like where leaders and managers are today, like what are their people calling out for today, and then how does that fast forward into the future. So Gallup at the beginning of this year produced the state of the workforce report, and it's something like 80% of employees are disengaged already. 80% of employees are disengaged, and 70% of managers feel overwhelmed. So let's spoon on some, new products, new AI tools, etc. More doom and gloom at a macro level.
Yep.
Like actually, if I was a business leader in a recruitment business or, in-house in any industry, actually what's the most important thing for me right now? I think comes back to the point you made maybe like 5 minutes ago about mission. It's amazing how many businesses, the owners, the leaders aren't clear themselves on their mission, vision, and values. I see more and more businesses that we're speaking to, and they say, right, we want a leadership program, we need a management program. It's like, why? It's like, well, our engagement survey we did is not looking great. And actually, the first thing we say is, well, let's have a conversation with you about like what's the culture, what's the mission, vision, values at your business. Let's do that first. And I think those businesses that I see doing really well now and are the integrators and the transformers in terms of adoption of AI rather than the tinkerers are really clear on this is the problem we're solving. These are the people we're going to hire to do it. And these are the values we're going to do business by. Let's make sure all of our people are empowered, given the tools that they can, to be able to have the best chance at us succeeding in a new way of working, a new world, etc. And they're not overwhelming with like 50 experiments at once. They're saying, this is what we're going to adopt now. We're going to see how it plays out. And we've actually got someone who's responsible for, in the leadership team, for measuring how that impacts our people and if there is ROI. So I think for me, the call out is you've got to think about, if you've got disengaged employees, like they are costing you, I think it's on average £1.5 million per business. That's roughly 50 people. The cost of disengaged employees.
Leadership's going to be more important. There just might not be as many in a business.
Well, that's it. And I think the kind of the last point I'll make on it is I think you'll see the team leader manager, the super manager, like how you said about super workers. I think there's a super manager group coming that are very good at working and leading AI human teams. And then I think there's a gap there, which is like director level, that I think will thin out because you'll have that C-suite interface with those super managers that will be very data driven, very ROI orientated. And I think that's the risk level for me I see, particularly in the recruitment sector.
So if we summarize those three things, they actually complement each other beautifully. I don't think that we've narrated this, which is the fact that what you've spoken about there is clarity as to where you're going. And so if anyone's listening to this, what we're talking about there is real clarity over the problem that you want to solve.
Yeah.
And the biggest issue is that a lot of recruitment owners are not problem enough focused, and they don't validate if that problem needs to be solved by their customer. And I would suggest, I don't know everyone else feels about this, but keep pushing and talking to people until you find a big, sustainable, long-term problem that people have, and then focus in it.
Yeah.
And then get some vision and values and some structure around that. What you were talking about, Sean, was this do less, but do more of the less, which fits absolutely right behind what Ben was saying, doesn't it? Because we've got clarity. The issue is you do too much. The moment that you say, we're going to exactly that destination there, it's 12 miles away. These are the conditions. It's 5 degrees uphill. It's sunny. It's whatever. I can pack perfectly for that trip.
Yeah.
If you go, we're thinking of going over here. No date, no location, no understanding of the weather, the terrain. How does someone pack for that? They pack fucking shitloads of stuff.
But most people are so scared of what they're going to lose.
Yes.
That's all they think. Oh, but I did a bit of that, and I've done a bit of that, and we do a bit of that, and we make some money there.
And what you were saying, Hung, is that people need to embrace this technology because it's here to stay, and it can have a significant impact on the top of funnel right the way through to a lot of the tasks that are happening. And you need a team which is incredibly capable, compatible with that technology. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's happening. You take control of it, take control of the change. Don't have the change happen to you.
Yep.
But then be very clear what you intend to do with the excess time you save. Because that needs to be articulated. You need to have in the intern world is a classic one where we don't articulate this. Right, I've just saved my hiring managers 20 hours of time. What happens with that? Next year, I'm going to be told, go and save them more time. Yes. And then you're endlessly automating. What TA teams need to be doing is saying, look, I need 5 of those hours back so I can reinvest it in other stuff that we want to be doing that's good for the business.
Yes.
And agencies need to have the same attitude. It's not just good enough to say, all right, this guy's doing amazing, he's, automate away. What other things can this guy do to help future-proof his business, future-proof our business?
We instinctively all realise the thing that we should be doing more of is not what AI is going to replace.
It's tacit knowledge. It's the information that's not documented. That is often the biggest driver of decisions. It's all, if you think about the biggest decisions you've ever made in your life, no one's making minutes in that conversation.
Yeah.
AI is trained on documented information currently. Therefore, that's why it makes these sort of mistakes that someone with better context and more nuance will be able to spot very quickly. Recruitment agents in particular have a massive advantage here because they should do a lot of in-person meetings. This is the beer with the contractor at 5 o'clock, and that person's going to tell you stuff that can't be written down, but that is going to be useful market intelligence for you next day. Internal recruiter will not have that meeting because they're meeting internal stakeholders, so they'll have a different type of market intelligence. So I think so long as we understand that, and so long as we promote the concept of meeting people, human beings have got plenty to play, however AI enabled we get.
You imagine how cool that would be. I'll be honest, I chose a job, a company called Venquis in London. The reason I chose that job is I got offered by Nigel Frank International, you remember, were incredible at like Microsoft Dynamics recruitment all over Europe. And they were like, I'd just come from working at Randstad in Melbourne, where I was working in the Victorian government, state government contract. And it was just walking around the CBD of Melbourne, having coffee all day. That's all I did. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but it was great fun. I put on loads of weight. Anyway, so I get to London and there's 2 jobs, one offering me more money, both incredible prospects, but this one goes, you're going to basically sit and you're going to recruit Dynamics across Europe, Scandinavia, big fees. They sold all these numbers to me. And then a lady called Claire at Venk was like, oh, we're just going to walk around Lime Street all day. We're going to be in Corney and Barrow. We're going to meet people. I'll take that all day. And actually, if I look back at my job as a recruiter, what burnt me out, which led me to, was probably the bit that I was so attracted by, and I still think was incredible. And now I've literally built my day and my diary around how can I have more. Again, it's very virtual because I want to be around my daughter and I want to be at home, but I want to be in conversation. I don't want to be sat there for hours and hours and hours thinking and tinkering. I need that in my day and my week. It has to be there, because if you're only in meetings, then you're just a busy fool and you never learn, you never develop. No. But you've got analysis paralysis as well is the problem that I find a lot of people. They sit behind spreadsheets, they sit behind teams, pushing paper, thinking, but I just go blanket line in the middle. 50% I'm thinking and 50% I'm on calls, I'm in meetings, I'm out, and it's working really, really well for me.
That's really interesting. Where do you sit with that, Ben? Because how much time are leaders, leaning into the cozy, comfortable, look at my screen operational work that's getting in the way of them and doing the high value work they should be doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the first question is like, what is the high value work they should be doing? Yep. And arguably at the moment, the high value work they should be doing is trying to re-engage their team members and understand what's going to drive the best results, performance, and well-being for those people. Like ultimately, that's the role. That's part of their role. Like in recruitment, if they're a billing manager, they've got to do their own work as well and hit their own number. But fundamentally, they're responsible for the performance and well-being of those people at the moment. We'll layer some agents on in due course, but they're responsible for the well-being and the performance of those people. I think that there's a lot of pressure and noise and projects that come down from the C-suite in a lot of the businesses that we work in that they feel compelled to say yes to. And you've got this, like John Adair has this model, a guy called John Adair of task, team, and individual. So you're spinning 3 plates as a leader the whole time. My tasks, looking after the individual, looking after the team. There's this 4th plate that's come in, which is like projects. Let's implement this in. Let's do this change. Let's do this change. And this is why I think managers are overwhelmed. So how much heads up space, thinking, reflecting, plan, do, review do they do? Like so little, because they're on the hamster wheel. Go faster, be more productive. We need to cut costs. We need profits to be higher. I see this worse actually in corporates than I do in smaller high growth startups, because the corporates are in their calendars are back to back meetings for meeting's sake. And one of the biggest interventions that we'll do is actually working with leaders to help them understand, like, where are the highest value tasks that they should be doing versus what they're doing now. And something that's really important is giving people the skill set to be able to say no, not yet, and yes, but. And until you know how to say no, not yet, and yes, but to the people who are higher up in the organization than you, they haven't got visibility of what's going on below them, because they just know we need to be more profitable, we need to grow faster, we need to cut costs. Actually, this super manager bit that I think needs to come is managers that are able and skilled up to say, like, yes, I can do this, but I need to stop doing these 3 things, or we need to automate these 3 things, and then I can do that. And I think in the businesses that I see being really successful, they are creating and carving out a skill set in their managers and their leaders to say, actually, this is time I'm using to reflect, coach, and develop my people, and look at our processes, rather than just go faster, go faster, go faster.
The overwhelm is real for sure. I remember sitting down with a recruitment leader. They got a 50-man business, 60-man business. They've been asking me some advice, and I said to him, look, just talk me through what you've implemented, because I got this inkling that they're kind of putting a lot of things in. Okay, let me ask you a question. When you got asked to come off the sales floor for some sort of corporate meeting, business meeting, okay, how did you feel? I go, fucking hell, like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? I've got to get hold of him. I've got to get hold of her. I've got to do, I've got to make money. I go, right, great. We're aligned to that. Yeah, that's exactly how I would have felt. Yeah, I did feel. Great. Let's talk through. Write me down. Let's take the last 3 months. If I'm a recruitment consultant in your company, talk me through all of the things that they would have gone through. And then you look at it, and the amount of change, they're being trained on 4 or 5 different tools. They've got a training program which is being put in because we've now got access to more data and more information. So everyone's getting a training session each week. The topics are condensed, though really densely packed. They have them making changes to the business as well. And you're looking at it and you're going, look, these guys, your sales guys in a quarter have probably navigated 20, 30 changes.
Micro changes, yeah.
I think that leaders of businesses, you talk about the C-suite founders, they lose sight of that impact because they're often 1 degree away from it.
Yeah, we did. So we do a diagnostic before we do any intervention, like management leadership training. Everything's bespoke, and I did 72. It was 72,000 words of transcript in the end of interviews with managers, consultants, ops teams, finance in this recruitment business. 10 hours of interviews, 72,000 words transcribed. And when we did the qualitative analysis on what they were telling us there's change after change after change, lack of clarity, lack of transparency as to why. So in coming back to context, like the most important thing we can do now as leaders with lots of change that is coming, is in place now, is like why, context, the value to the person. Like people have got to go through that change curve, and everyone has to go through that change curve for it to really embed.
And that comes back to your point, just doing less, but doing it well.
Yeah, but when you've got 4, 5, 6 services or whatever, it's hard. Like if I look back at my business, we used to do so many different things, and we've just trimmed it right down to 2.
Yes.
And it's so much better. I mean, those 2 things can change and evolve, but changing 2 things or 1 thing is much easier than changing 50 things.
When you look at it from an internal perspective, where do you see corporates making as much radical change, or is it mainly agencies that are really being that dynamic?
Agencies tend to be quicker with change simply because they're simpler organizations.
Yep.
If you look at it, recruitment agencies are actually quite strange organizations when you think about it, because 99% of the people there are fee-earning consultants.
So it's a sales industry.
Yeah. The role diversity is very homogenous. Whereas in corporate, it's actually can be tremendously diverse.
Yeah.
So to change a very diverse thing is similar to changing business lines. It's like very, very difficult to operate that around. What I do see, though, is that there is a desire to change and a pressure to change, and that change will happen whether they're driving that car or not. So there'll be transformations where they can do it, low hanging fruit to begin with. So you're seeing things that 12 months or so ago probably would be a marginal thing that is happening now, becoming mainstream. As an example, AI interview scheduling. Right. That will become ubiquitous in 12 months' time. AI note takers 18 months or so ago was a marginal thing. That is going to become ubiquitous. We're now looking at AI candidate screening, even AI interviewing as coming in. High volume hiring, internal recruitment teams can't handle it. That's going to be deployed. So all of these sort of parts of the hiring funnel, you're going to start seeing significant changes. Now, my conversation with those guys is the same as the conversation I'm having with you here. It's like, what are you going to do with the excess time? You have to actually negotiate for that, because the business is simply going to say next year, brilliant lads, do it again. And what we've got to do internally is to say, we need some of that money at that time back, and then reapply it and reinvest it in other stuff that we say we care about. Yes. So it is happening, but depending on how complex that organization is.
Coming back to that opportunity for agencies in that world, where do you see it? Where's the? I know we've touched on it a little bit, but
I'm very confident in recruitment agencies,
right?
Precisely because they have access to a sort of information that internal doesn't have and AI doesn't have,
yep.
Which is essentially like is the geezer up for it? That's not documented. And it's often unknown. Like, most of us don't walk around thinking, all right, I'm always looking for jobs. We get the opportunity often from an agency that stimulates us to think, hang on, this could be brilliant. Yeah. And then suddenly that bit of information is not recorded anywhere, as far as I know. Yep. Some neurons are fired in there and connected. That's information that whoever's had that conversation has the competitive advantage.
Yes.
So also the time to be able to put in. So going back to that role of walking around Lime Street, I used to meet candidates all the time with nothing for them. Like, yeah. I used to be like, can I buy you a coffee? They'd be like, for what? I'm like, well, I've got absolutely nothing for you right now. I'm going to be really honest, but I guarantee I'm going to have stuff for you in the next 6 to 12 months. I know I will. So
basically what Sean's describing there is building a trust relationship. It's just more easy than we think. It doesn't take a long time, but you can do it. There is a huge advantage in person. So this is another aspect of where we've gone through the shift to remote period. We jettisoned loads of people distributed out. The advantage, again, I think comes back to people that are actually on the street, that are actually in sort of space. Now, what this means, I think, for agencies is that you're going to probably have more like localized and regionalized hubs that will actually be very effective. So, an agency in Bristol, for instance, that actually has a bunch of people in Bristol doing what Sean is doing is suddenly going to become more competitive against some guys trying to hire it out of London, where that might not have been the case in the pre-AI world, because trust... AI will basically is corrosive to trust.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your time, guys. Absolutely awesome. And we'll get those books out now. Actually, who hasn't read the Elon book? That's you, isn't it?
I've not read it.
I've not read it either, but you can give
me. He's got two. Any book
I'll take one.
Yeah, I'll take one.
Right,
yeah, I'll take Elon.